Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Let's Talk Substance Use, Where and How to Get Help, part of our May Mental Health Month programming. My name is Debbie Friedman, and I am the Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Innovation and Engagement at the New York City Mayor's Office of Labor Relations. Just a quick insight into what WorkWell is. WorkWell is the worksite wellness program for New York City employees. We recognize that New York City employees are busy taking care of New Yorkers every single day, and we want to be there to help you take care of yourself and be as healthy as you can be. And we do this through a variety of means, including our Move More physical activity bucket. We have over 30 digital fitness classes before, during, and after the traditional workday. We also have a healthy eating program that includes cooking demonstration, nutrition classes, WW, formerly known as Weight Watchers, significantly discounted, among other programs. We also have our primary care and prevention program, including COVID testing, promoting the COVID vaccine. We have a new hypertension program coming out, and many others. We have our Be Well mental health, mental well-being and resilience program, which this is a part of, and you'll learn more about our work there. And finally, Project Build, which focuses on our health equity, recognize that our health system is inequitable at this time, and there's a lot of work to do. So providing programming to try and address equity issues and provide safe space to talk about it. But today we're here to talk about the latest public health crisis, or one of the many health crises that exist in our society. So just think about it. Every 6 hours, someone dies of a drug overdose in New York City. In fact, more New Yorkers die of drug overdoses than homicides, suicides, and motor vehicle crashes combined. Just let that sink in. It's really significant. And in fact, during COVID, it's gotten even worse. We have seen a 29% rise in overdose deaths from the year leading up to September 2020. And in fact, we know more people either started using substance during this past year and a half or increased their usage. In addition, a third of the population reported feeling depressed during this time. And yet only half of those folks got help. So we know that there's a lot of work to be done. We also want to acknowledge that there are tremendous inequities in terms of how different ethnic groups, racial groups are treated. Not, unfortunately, when it comes to addiction. There's no discrimination there. But in fact, how groups have access to treatment, access to quality treatment, and how the criminal justice system treats some of our neighbors and colleagues. And so we want to acknowledge that that is a significant issue, a societal issue that we need to address. However, it's not one we're going to be addressing today. Our goal today is to provide information and education of the resources available to New York City employees, as well as to help us understand what this system is all about. So it is a conversation for us to have, and it's one that we will address. For today, I'm really excited, and you can see on your screen, to be joined by colleagues from the New York City Employees Assistance Program and the DC 37 Personal Service Unit. So we have Erin Quinn, the Associate Deputy Director of the New York City EAP, Crystal Brabin, the Clinical Supervising Social Worker from DC 37 PSU, Ebony Brown, a counselor with our New York City Employee Assistance Program, and finally, Stephanie Kleinberg, the director of the DC 37 Personal Service Unit. So what we're going to cover today is an overview of what is substance use. When we're talking about use, abuse, addiction, what does all of that mean, and what are the substances we're referring to? And how does it impact families, spouses, children, etc.? And then what we can do about it. What treatment and supports are available for those who are struggling, and also what incredible resources there are for city employees. We will be recording this session, or we are recording this session, and we will be sending it out to you in the next day or two, and everyone who registered for the session, as well as other resources that can help support you during this time. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Erin Quinn, who will help us understand what is substance use. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks, Deborah. So the substances we are discussing today are mind-altering substances, which are psychoactive drugs that can produce mood changes and distorted perceptions. They can be legal or illegal. They are habit-forming substances. What makes them habit-forming is that they produce a state of arousal, contentment, euphoria, and or sleep-inducing properties. So we're going to start off with a poll. And the poll question is, which of the following can be used as a mind-altering substance? Gasoline, hairspray, Adderall, or all of the above?
Survey says.
All of the above. Wow, very good. So it's over all of the above because drugs like Adderall are, even though they're prescribed to help people that suffer from ADHD, they can be misused for their stimulant effects. Also, gasoline and hairspray, along with 1,000 other household products that include nail polish remover, deodorant, and canned whipped cream, produce chemical vapors that are inhaled through the nose or mouth in search for a quick high, quick intoxication. And we know that 1 out of 5 13-year-olds, 8th graders, report using inhalants. Next slide. So today we're going to be focusing on drugs that New Yorkers misuse most often. We're going to start out with stimulants, which are a class of psychoactive drug that increases activity in the brain. They temporarily elevate alertness, mood, and awareness. Many of us use stimulants daily, including myself. Caffeine is the one that we use, along with the rest of the world, and it's found in coffee, tea, chocolate, and soft drinks. As you know, caffeine has several positive effects, such as increasing our energy and mental alertness. When used heavily, it can cause insomnia and anxiety. Other legal stimulants include nicotine, amphetamines. Those are the drugs like Adderall we just talked about that are prescribed for ADHD, and drugs that help you lose weight because stimulants speed up your metabolism. Right here on the slide, the powdered substance is a stimulant called cocaine. And if we showed this in a crystallized smokable form, that would be called crack cocaine, and it offers a short, very intense high. Depressants are drugs that inhibit the function of the central nervous system and are among the most widely used drugs in the world. Symptoms include drowsiness, relaxation, decreased inhibition, sleep, coma, and even death. This slide actually illustrates 2 different types of depressants. We have alcohol, and the pills could be barbiturates or benzodiazepines, which are widely prescribed to treat anxiety and sleep disorders. You might have heard of Xanax, Valium, Ativan, or maybe Ambien. For the next classification of drugs, I'd like you to visualize something for me. I want you to think back to the classic movie, The Wizard of Oz. Visualize Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion walking down the yellow brick road. Before they get to Emerald City, the Wicked Witch of the West put in a blockade by putting in a field of poppy plants, the red flowers that you saw. As the 4 wandered through the field, Dorothy and the Lion mysteriously fell asleep, succumbing to the vapors released by those poppy plants. It didn't work because the Tin Man and Scarecrow are not human or animals, so they were not affected by the poppies. So what we see in the category of drugs derived from the poppy plant seen on The Wizard of Oz are called opioids. Opioids effects include drowsiness, confusion, along with pain relief and euphoria. Examples of opioids include prescription painkillers such as codeine, morphine, oxycodone, and fentanyl, and the street drug heroin. Next slide. Okay, we have another poll. Which opioid is the most potent? Heroin, codeine, fentanyl, or morphine? Okay, and the answer is, let's see what you guys guessed. Fentanyl, wow. Wow, good crowd here. Yes, the answer is fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid approved by the FDA to treat severe pain. It is 100 times more potent than morphine and 50 times more potent than heroin. And we've been hearing a lot about opioid-related deaths that contain fentanyl lately. And the most recent cases of these overdoses are linked to illegally made fentanyl that is very cheap. And it's often cut into the mix of heroin to increase the high for the user. And most of them don't even know they're using it. Okay, the oldest category of drugs are hallucinogens, which alter a person's perception of reality. Effects include paranoia, a sense of not being real, and hallucinations. Examples of hallucinogens are LSD, known as acid, ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer, street name Special K, PCP, peyote, and the drug you see over here on the slide, on the image on the left, known as magic mushrooms. Another substance that is misused by New Yorkers is ecstasy, MDMA, or you may know it as Molly. It is in two categories. It's actually in the hallucinogen category along with the stimulant category, and it's used as a party drug. It's often called the love drug because it enhances tactile experiences. Everything feels better when you're on it. Right here in the middle on the slide is marijuana, which includes, it's actually in its own category of drugs with marijuana concentrates. Its effects include relaxation, euphoria, appetite changes, impaired memory, concentration, and coordination. This photo in the middle shows marijuana in its most popular form. But now there's marijuana concentrates, which is much more potent, and it contains very high levels of THC. It can appear like a gooey substance that looks like honey, or a soft texture that looks like wax or butter. And then on the right is another substance to be mindful of. It's considered a designer drug, and it's known as the fake marijuana. It's a synthetic drug that mimics THC and is often marketed and sold in bodegas and corner groceries under the guise of herbal incense and potpourri. It's typically labeled not for human consumption. That's on the packaging, and it's very dangerous. It can produce paranoia, anxiety, hallucinogens, and panic attacks. Next slide. People use mind-altering substances for many reasons. They include social bonding, rebellion, even religious ceremonies. Some use it to feel better, to lessen anxiety, worries, fear, depression, and hopelessness. Others use it to feel good, to have novel feelings, sensations, and experiences. People continue to use because mind-altering substances do their job, they work. Next slide. As you know, our brains are hardwired to survive. To ensure that we will repeat life-sustaining activities, bonding, eating, sex, it's associated this reward circuit with pleasure, dopamine. Whenever this reward circuit is activated, the brain notes that something important is happening, and then it knows to repeat it. When some mind-altering substances are taken, they can release 2 to 10 times the amount of that feel-good feeling dopamine than the natural rewards, such as eating and sex. This makes some substances more addictive than actual natural rewards. For instance, sugar and fat are two substances that can affect dopamine production. You see here that there's a yummy cheeseburger, and that could trigger approximately 100 units of dopamine, while sex, at the point of orgasm, alcohol, and gambling can trigger 200 plus units of dopamine. That's equivalent to 2 cheeseburgers. Cocaine produces a huge amount of dopamine, approximately 400 units for cheeseburgers. And the mother of them all, you see here, this blue crystal, is methamphetamine, which releases over 1,000 units of dopamine, equivalent to 10 cheeseburgers. Despite all the pleasure that these substances provide, only a percentage of people who use them develop a substance use disorder. For instance, only 8 to 10% of people who drink alcohol develop an alcohol use disorder. Next slide. It is helpful to look at substance use along a continuum from total abstinence to experimental, recreational use, to excessive use, which may lead to a substance use disorder, which is another name for addiction. Many people begin by experimenting because they're curious, peer pressure. In time, experimentation may change to recreational use. At this stage, people are using socially, weekends, or at parties. People might begin to use substances regularly, even daily, which doesn't necessarily mean they have a problem. Problems are more likely to occur when people increase their use and continue to use excessively, even though there are negative consequences, which is very important to understand. Addiction occurs when the repeated use of alcohol and other drugs cause problems in the day-to-day life. Relationship problems. Problems at work. Next slide. Okay, another poll. Do you or a loved one suffer from an alcohol or substance use disorder? Yes or no? And the answer is
Reminded, this is confidential.
yes, 56%. You are not alone. 1 out of 10 Americans suffer from an alcohol or substance use disorder, and 5 out of 10 Americans, just like we reported here, have a loved one who suffers from one. Thank you for sharing. Next slide. Okay, addiction. What is it? It's a complex brain disease characterized by compulsive behavior, persistent changes in the brain, structure and function, and continued use despite negative consequences. It is chronic, it is progressive, it gets worse over time, and when left untreated, it is fatal. You will die an early death if you continue to misuse these substances. Next slide. There is no single factor that determines whether a person will develop a substance use disorder. Genetics is a big contributor to the risk of addiction, and environmental factors also come into play. For instance, the younger a person is when they start using these substances, the greater the risk of misuse. The only people not at risk are those people who choose not to use at all. Next slide. So what do you look for? If a person is misusing substances, there are some signs to look for. It is usually the outward behaviors that are the most obvious symptoms of misuse. They include bloodshot eyes, changes in pupil size, big or small, nosebleeds, flushed skin, runny noses, sudden weight gain or loss increased or decreased appetite, uncharacteristic poor hygiene, unexplained bruises or marks or scabs on the skin, or scratching, you see them scratching. Wearing inappropriate clothing like long sleeves in warm weather to cover the injection marks. I even had a client I always knew when she relapsed because she used to shave her head and dye it blonde. There are also behavioral signs, warning signs. You could change the slide. And those are having intense urges or cravings, increased tolerance, which is like needing more and more of that substance for the desired effect. The substance use gets in the way of work, school, or other activities, causes problems with family, friends, and other relationships. It harms a person's mental or physical health, or makes it worse. Creates financial problems, we see a lot here at the EAP, and can include withdrawal symptoms when trying to stop. And finally, next slide, there are psychological signs of misuse, appearing anxious, fearful, paranoid, oversensitive, or angry. They can lack motivation, or they're tired, or they have increased energy. They could even be depressed or suicidal or homicidal. Thank you for listening. Our next presenter is an EAP counselor. She is a social worker, and her name is Ebony Brown.
Thank you, Erin. Today we'll be talking about the key messages that family members can take away. We want to recognize that our social groups include a lot of different people, but it is not limited to our biological family. That is our parents and siblings, our extended family, such as cousins, aunts, and grandparents, and our chosen family, such as our significant other, our friend groups, neighbors, and even coworkers. Family can play a key role in the community and connection that is needed in the healing process. And there is no one right way to respond. And we will talk about options that family members can receive support. There are many reasons why a person uses substances. And when supporting our family members, we want to learn about the substance use and also connect with professional and peer support that can help us help our family members. And there are many options for family members to receive support. We'll go through a list of, next slide, of the professional options and peer support options through Al-Anon, Allenteen, Family Anonymous, and Smart Recovery, Family and Friends, which is just a few options that family members can receive support in responding to substance use for a family member and to receive support themselves. Next will be Deb.
Thanks, Ebony and Erin. And part of what is important for all of us to recognize is, as Erin said, while 1 in 10 people might have a substance use issue, 5 in 10 are impacted by family and friends. So it is important for all of us to understand how we can help and support. So we want to hear now from some folks who have actually experienced a substance misuse issue, but have also received, as it says here, the gift of recovery. And this comes to us through Just 5, which is a new digital program available to City of New York employees that provides education and resources for your family and friends. And I'll talk more about it later. So if we can play the video, thanks. All right, why don't we move forward and we can come back at the end of the session to see if we can bring it up. And so part of what you would have heard is from 3 individuals who had an issue with substances and how they were able to get help and the impact that it had on them, their work, their family, their friends. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Crystal Robin from our DC 37 Personal Service Unit. Crystal.
Hi, I'm going to talk about the treatment of substance misuse and the levels of treatment and support. After listening to the different types of substance issues and how misuse can happen, there is hope and treatment options available. Next slide, please. Early intervention, ambulatory detox, outpatient care, intensive outpatient treatment, inpatient treatment, AA and NA support groups, and harm reduction. Next slide, please. So we have a poll question. Do you or someone you know participate in a peer support group or treatment for substance use? Yes or no? And the answer is no. Okay, so that's good, and those that are participating, that's great also. I'm going to talk about early intervention, which can occur. Next slide, please. Can occur before being referred to treatment and can also occur in treatment for people with problematic use or at-risk behaviors, which can be assessed by a mental health professional. It can be provided in school clinics, primary care offices, and mental health clinics. The goal is to decrease harm and to decrease risky behavior. Excuse me. The goal is also for the improvement of health and social functioning, to reduce isolating behaviors and to prevent progression to a disorder. Early intervention connects prevention and treatment services. Early intervention in an outpatient treatment program are for those who have exhibited signs of at-risk substance use as assessed by a mental health professional, and once referred to an outpatient program, a more in-depth assessment will occur. Early intervention in an outpatient treatment program is coordinated around an 8-week program. Next slide, please. Ambulatory detox and outpatient care. Ambulatory detox is an outpatient model for individuals requiring detox from drugs and alcohol. Average stay in ambulatory detox is usually 3 to 5 days. This can be done safely in a hospital setting. Outpatient care is also called ambulatory care and is where clients typically participate in individual and group counseling. This is a less intensive treatment program that might be for folks that are able to work and/or go to school while participating in the program. In an outpatient treatment, one might find an early intervention program for those who have exhibited signs of at-risk substance use, including but not limited to a DUI or a DWI violation or a first time tested positive on a random drug test. This outpatient treatment might be coordinated around an 8-week program. Next slide, please. Intensive outpatient program. Intensive outpatient program could be a 2-step program of rehabilitation offering individual counseling, group therapy, and psychoeducation with a focus on recovery and relapse prevention. Phase 1 is usually the most intensive, with 3 to 5 visits weekly for a period of 4 to 8 weeks. And phase 2 is usually for individuals that still maintain a high level of treatment intensity, meeting 2 times per week for approximately 12 weeks. Next slide. Inpatient treatment is an intensive residential treatment, and the member would remain in treatment from 14 to up to 25 days at a facility that has medical, mental health, as well as substance treatment professionals on staff. Most programs are abstinence-based programs. Stays are overnight in a setting that specializes in extensive substance use, and many programs specialize in dual diagnosis treatment as well as traumas. Some programs provide pickup and drop-off services. Dual diagnosis treatment can occur in both an outpatient and inpatient treatment programs and is an integrated treatment approach for co-occurring substance use and psychiatric disorders, and is also where individual and group counseling are conducted, as well as a possible medication-assisted treatment program. The severity of one's disorders would determine the frequency of visits and the intensity in an outpatient program with a maximum of 5 visits per week. Trauma-specific services can also occur in outpatient and in inpatient treatment programs. The treatment of the underlying trauma while in substance treatment can greatly reduce the likelihood of relapse and can provide the foundation for a solid and lasting recovery. Specialized trauma services are services for frontline responders such as veterans, FDNY, EMTs, and NYPD. Some inpatient services specialize in the specific traumas that many of the frontline professionals experience. Many outpatient and inpatient treatment programs include families as an integral part of their programs. Other treatment and support options are AA/NA, also known as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, are abstinence-based peer-supported recovery groups. They are spiritual in nature and include a higher power to remain abstinent. They also utilize and aim to complete 12 guidelines or steps to help the individual overcome their substance of choice. Recognizing that substance use is not just an individual's issue, as mentioned earlier, there are peer support groups such as Alateen, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, and ACOA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics, for families and for loved ones. Harm reduction. Harm reduction advocates for reducing the amount of substance use and the negative consequences the person's substance of choice has in their life. Emblem Health has many in-network treatment programs for both outpatient and inpatient treatment. Next slide. Now, it's a poll question. If a person is struggling with substance use, how can they decide on the best form of treatment? One is consulting with New York City EAP, consult with the union's personal service unit, consult with their doctor, or any of the above. And the winner is all of the above, exactly. That's the best choice. Any one of the three choices that we had would be a best approach for working with what type of treatment program or support program would be best for the member or individual. So I'm now going to introduce Stephanie Kleinberg, Director of PSU, who will be providing more information about EAP and PSU services.
Good afternoon. I'm going to provide first some information on EAP, PSU, and other supports for union members. New York City Employee Assistance Program, DC 37's Personal Service Unit, PSU, and other union assistance programs offer free, confidential counseling support to employees, family members, and retirees. These services address mental health needs, substance use, personal and work stress. Assistance is provided through short-term counseling, workshops, consultation, and support groups. In relation to substance use, the EAPs and PSU provide an assessment and referral to the appropriate treatment. We then monitor the treatment to assure the member's needs are met. Next slide. I'm now going to provide an overview on DC 37's Personal Service Unit. PSU provides counseling and support for a variety of personal and mental health concerns such as depression, anxiety, bereavement, substance use, and job stress. PSU has social workers, consulting psychiatrists, and clerical support on staff. Next slide. Counseling sessions are presently provided by teletherapy due to the pandemic, but are usually conducted in person. We also provide workshops and interventions for trauma, loss, stress management, and more. Members contact PSU voluntarily or through referrals from union representatives or the work site. During the screening process, we provide an assessment to obtain demographics and an overview of the situation. We then provide an intake appointment for a first session at PSU or a referral. The best way to contact us for an assessment is to call 212-815-1260 from 9 to 1 for a screening. You are also welcome to call our general number from 9 to 5 at 212-815-1250. I'm now going to introduce Ebony Brown again, who will present on New York City EAP.
Thank you. EAP also provides educational and informational counseling services and referrals to individuals and short-term counseling when needed. We are available to all New York City non-uniform mayoral agencies, as well as dependents and retirees and children. Next slide. Currently, we always offer free confidential assistance that is necessary to make the right recommendation for support. And it is always covered through in-network services insurance. We also offer weekly support groups on grief and loss, relaxation, people of color, and resiliency. All sessions right now are covered remotely, and we are available from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us by emailing us at eap@olr.nyc.gov or leaving a voicemail message at 212-306-7660, and we will respond same day to schedule an intake and do the screening process on your preferred method of contact, either via phone or email. Our website also has takeaways that you can download on various topics to learn more and to follow up with us to discuss next options.
Sorry, hi, thank you so much. I mean, New York City employees are incredibly lucky. Some of the best practices around the country for helping to support employees with mental health substance use issues is to have employee assistance or union-oriented member assistance programs. And we are really lucky in New York City to have both. But we also have other resources. As I mentioned before, we have, and this is new to City of New York employees, this digital confidential program that is available online. You could see it on your screen, and it was also put into the chat. And the recording, as well as these links, will be shared with you after today's recording. And what is powerful about this new program is there are short 5-minute videos, different clips that then will link you to other resources, including a self-assessment that you can either do for yourself or your loved one, as well as helping to help you guide you to the resources that you need, including, as we mentioned, the Union EAP, the Union Member Assistance Program, and the New York City Employee Assistance Program. We also in New York City have the NYC Well, which is a text, chat, and video service that's available for all New Yorkers, not just City of New York employees, but it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so if somebody is in crisis or you're concerned about them, it's a place to call. So with that, let's open it up for questions. And there are some questions that have been both in the chat and in the Q&A. So I'm going to start with the Q&A. So first question is, what are some treatments for K2? What are the damages, and can the damages that are done be reversed? Erin, do you want to take that one?
Sure. The reason why K2 spice is so dangerous is because it's sprayed with chemicals. And those chemicals are constantly, the chemical compounds are constantly changing, because as soon as the DEA gets a hold of the compound, they make them illegal. So then they change the chemical compounds. So I don't know if that makes sense. And they can cause brain swelling, seizures, heart disease. And with drugs, are they reversible? Well, whenever you stop any substance, you do gain some benefits, right? Not all benefits, depends on what the damage is. And you could get help just like any other substances. So there's rehabs, there's outpatient programs. You can go to even AA, NA. There's probably a K2 Anonymous now too. So there's Marijuana Anonymous, there's all kinds of anonymous programs that you can attend.
Thank you. For loved ones that don't believe they need treatment but suffer from an obvious addiction, is there any way to persuade them to seek treatment, or is it useless unless they ask for the treatment themselves? Maybe Crystal, do you want to take that one?
Well, I don't believe that it's useless. I think that, you should mention that you're concerned about them. It would be best if the member or individual went to treatment, and went for themselves, because then that shows that they're more motivated, for treatment, but it's never a wrong thing to say that I'm concerned about you and I'm concerned about some of the behaviors that I've noticed, that might bring it to their attention. They might not even be aware that the behaviors that you're seeing is what's happening.
And again, I would encourage you to have that person take a look at the self-assessment in the Just Five um, website. It might help them realize that some things that they don't realize is a problem could be a problem. So that might be something for you to consider. Two questions that I saw that we can address quickly is, where can people go if they don't have health insurance? And so what was put in the chat, hospitals like our health and hospital facilities do have treatment programs that are open to folks regardless of their insurance background. Again, you can reach out to the member service unit, a personal service unit, or EAP, and they can help you. There's also a question about, can minors be referred if the parent works for the city? Yes, yes, yes. The employee assistance program will work with you for all of, to take care of your children as well. Okay. Other questions. How do you feel about marijuana being legalized? Can it cause a bigger problem with drug addiction? And what impact will that have on city workers? Who wants to take that?
That's a loaded question.
All right, so answer the piece that you want.
Okay, let's just say there's positives and negatives, right? So the positives is that they can, we'll know what's in marijuana. They can be regulated, right? We know what's in edibles. The negatives are, it may increase addiction, right? Because alcohol is used more than marijuana, but we don't know that yet. We do know it's not a gateway drug like people do think it is. It's not. That's my answer. I can't say yes or no. It's something.
Okay. Does anybody else have another answer they wanted to add?
Similar to what Erin said, pros and cons. Marijuana has been shown to decrease anxiety and help those that have medical problems, but also it does impair judgment and coordination. So if one is getting behind the wheel of a car with marijuana use, I wouldn't want to be driving right next to that person. So, mixed reviews on it.
Yes, and I know from the city as an employer, just like you, there are limitations about any kind of alcohol impairment or other impairment. If you have a commercial vehicle license, those same limitations would play out for marijuana or any other drug use. So I imagine that, potentially policies will be adjusted over time to make that clear. And some agencies have zero tolerance policies, and I don't know if that's going to change. So just be mindful and know which agency you're working and what their rules are. Okay, with dual diagnostic clients, is treatment provided at the same time or substance use before mental health services, or the other way? How does that work?
Okay.
Crystal? Yeah.
So what I would say is that when you go to a treatment program, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, they deal with both diagnoses at the time. Usually they take away the substance so that they can more definitively define the mental health diagnosis, but they work on both.
Any other comments? Okay. Erin, Ebony, I'll give this one to you. What if the loved one is aware, and if the loved one is aware and does not think, need, or want help?
I think that there's a lot we can do to offer early recovery options that are less intense and don't don't stigmatize that it is a disorder, but can provide support to reduce some of the dangers that may have occurred or been brought to their attention by the family members. And also that family member can seek support on their own from one of the peer support groups to get peer and professional support to respond to the things that have been happening in the family.
And actually, maybe can you also speak to how the New York City EAP works with minor children of city employees?
Related to substance use for
Yeah.
treatment?
Or any?
So minors can receive support with a parent's permission. We can speak directly to the child or speak through the parent to talk about what treatment would look like. We would do all the consents and refer to appropriate services. And then children are a little different, but we would just make sure that everything is needed to support the child and support the family member moving forward. And again, communication will be through both. I'm working with a child right now, and I'm going to be emailing the parent and the child so they're both aware of what the options are going to be and can make an informed decision by both parties, not just what the parent may be suggesting.
Great. And that's also how you can actually engage people in making the decisions while you're influencing it as well. How can you suggest a safer way to use marijuana without combustion if there is a medical card?
I can answer that. So smoking marijuana is not good because it has hundreds of chemicals in those and smoke, and that smoke goes into your body, into your organs, and that's what causes chronic disease. So the edible form would always be better, especially if it's regulated.
So does that answer the question about your thoughts on vaporized marijuana? I'm not sure.
I didn't hear that part. So
No, I didn't answer it, but I wasn't sure if it was embedded.
no, so we don't know about vapor, right? So we don't know much about vapor at all. We don't know if it's good, if it's harm reduction or it creates more harm. You know, the research is coming out every day about it. It's fairly new. So to be determined, but we do know smoke is not okay.
Okay, thank you. What's your thought? Where can you find the list of treatment centers or doctors, etc.? Maybe Stephanie, do you want to take it?
When we assess a member at PSU, and I do believe EAP does the same, we work with the member to determine a treatment plan. So if the member, says, I want to go to treatment in this borough, we would refer to that borough. We have certain treatment programs as the EAP does. We sort of work with the same ones that we prefer members to go to because we've seen results and they work very well with us with consent. So we do tailor the treatment plan to the members' needs, and we do work with certain programs. So we wouldn't just provide a list, we would work with you in order to provide the best place for your treatment.
Great, thank you. And one of the things we know, as Crystal mentioned earlier, there are some treatment options that are more appropriate for certain types of, especially city employees. A correction officer doesn't want to see somebody who they have seen in the jail in their treatment program. That does not work, just by way of an example. But, obviously social workers, caretakers, there's, any one of a number of groups. So our union, PSU, and also the employee assistance program are very sensitive to that. So they know that different programs exist. There was also a question earlier that I had missed, I apologize, is what's the best route to try and get help for someone who's age 26 facing mental difficulties? So presumably they're no longer part of their parents' health insurance. I assume that's part of the question. Who wants to take that? Erin?
You can go to the EAP, right? You can go to any of our programs and we will help that individual find the treatment they need.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we want to do a quick, see if we can do the video again? Ayana, you're up for it? Thank you all for your patience. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. Let's give it a moment. I feel like I should do a TikTok or sing, but I don't have a good voice, so I can't do that. All right. So, Ayana, let's go back to the final slides. And thank you all so much for being here. I hope that we helped add some additional information and answer your questions. And one of the ways we're going to find out is we're going to ask you in this next poll that will come up, which is, I learned something new about substance use from this webinar. We'll give it a moment. Yes or no. And the answer is yes, 96%. Well done. Thank you. And thank you. So I'd like to just share some upcoming events that Workwell has, in addition to the programs that were already mentioned during the webinar that the Employee Assistance Program has and that the PSU has. First is the Workwell Pulse Survey. This is our annual survey that provides us with information about how we're doing. Are we providing programs that are of value? Are there things that you'd like to see that we're not providing? We have, as I mentioned, our Project Build program is looking to address equity issues in the city and specifically around our health. So we have an introduction to equity and inclusion on May 19th. This is also Asian Pacific American Month celebration. And so we have 6 commissioners who are going to be joining in a conversation about their leadership and their legacy at the end of the month. We also have, next slide. We know that the office-based staff have all been called back to the office. I'm here today, starting May 3rd. And so later this month, we're going to talk about what this transition has been like. So it'll be a sharing forum to just hear the voices of folks and what their concerns are, how they've been able to positively address this transition. And then something to look forward to. We're going to have a Fit Fest in person, outside, safe distance in Harlem on June 6th. Mark your calendars. And you'll be getting more information as we get closer, but it's a great thing to look forward to. You can learn more and register at the link that is on your screen. And again, you'll be getting this in person. Next slide. We also, as I mentioned before, strongly encourage people to get vaccinated. It's the best thing that you can do to save yourself, your family, and to make it safe returning to the office. We also still have testing sites available so that folks could know. And so so here are the links that you can go as well. Plus also for most of our insured population, you can go to any of the testing sites. If you'd like more information or to join our mailing list, feel free to write to Workwell. We're on Instagram, we're very modern. And so you can come and follow us as well as on LinkedIn. So from all of us at Workwell, I want to thank you so much. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, there's another poll. How would you rate the overall quality of this webinar before I thank anybody? Poor, fair, good, very good, or excellent? All right, well, that's good. Everybody found something of value and most people found it very good or excellent. So thank you all. So again, I want to thank all of our panelists for the important work that both EAP and PSU does, supporting our employees and our families. I encourage you to check out the Just 5 site. You can do this in the privacy of your home, on your phone, wherever you may be, and feel free to share it with your family members for them to do the work on their own. I also want to thank our behind the scenes team, Ayana, Anna, Daniel, and all of the others as part of our Workwell NYC team. So thanks so much, everyone. If you have other questions that weren't answered, please feel free to write to WorkWell or give a call to the EAP and or the PSU. As a reminder, the slides, these additional resources I've mentioned, and the recording will be shared with everybody who registered for the webinar and will be available on our website. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day and please stay safe. Bye-bye.